Alfredo, thanks for all of this. And I don't know what else to ask you. But let's equate. Eu falei para ele.
The first question to all of them, how can we, together with the public, to revert this trend in the use of uh, plastic, and when we had the media totally against us? So how can we in the area can try to build something different without having to spend so much, because we don't have all this package of investment that media is mentioning for the plastic industry over the past years? I can try to start. Well, I think there are several actions that we need to take in order to change this reality. I think there's an important point that is to simplify, because the analysis of the life cycle is complex, and if you don't simplify the results and translate them, I think there is an issue regarding communication that is in our hands. But there's also an emotional aspect that is not that simple. That was put very well by Chris, but it's very difficult when you're at the beach and then you dive and you in the ocean and find the plastic. So if it's difficult for if you're there, it creates a very negative sensation. So I think that it's in this context that we need to act and have concrete actions to show this reality, because as we bring more volume and recycle more, and the amount of recycling increases, in my mind we also have more elements. So this is my perception. I also believe that complementing that, education has a lot to do with this journey. So I think that the education from a young age to adults and older people, so to brings this in a simplified way, the beginning again, because at schools people talk against plastic. So people say that my teacher told me that I'm eating a credit card per week. So how can we break this stigma that was created on plastic and show that it is good, with recycling it's even better, and circularity is also important? Talking about education, I think that we should do something impactful with the children. I think that we all have examples that we conduct activities and the child takes this message forward. So it was put here that we need to have money behind the thing. So we need to have money to do this in a very impactful way. And we have some simple examples that without having a lot of money, they are still very impactful. I don't think that Fomad is going to mention that later, but you did something fantastic with Tampinha Legal. You did that for the handicap. So it was something very simple, but it called such an attention from the media spontaneously that I think that we need to try to identify in each of our companies, in each of our activities, something that bring this spontaneous impact without needing to have a lot of resources to put our message forward. Well, during the presentation here, I mentioned a little bit about the importance of putting money into advertising. Of course, this is not all. We need to have content. We cannot use arguments, false arguments, just like the ones that are being used against PET. The thermoplastics in general, I think that Federaci mentioned, they are relatively new. They are from the decade of 80 or 90, so it's hard to believe that if it takes 400 years to degrade, you have a microplastic on the water. But I think that we're still learning some aspects. But even if we talk about circularity and life cycle assessment and all that, most of consumers don't have any idea of what that means. So there's learning that needs to be identified in the context. And first of all, we need to teach something and then we will convey the message. And then we're going to cover little by little these small examples about what kind of information we can convey. We discussed that a lot. That what is the role of the paper bag and the plastic bag? I have an engineering colleague that launched this idea, and I adopted that as an argument. We cannot convince people because the paper was wet. But then let's use another example. Let's get two aquariums with fish inside. In one, you throw a PET bottle or a PVC tube, and in another one, you put a paper. You throw a paper bag. You smash it and throw it. In the case of the aquarium, where they have the plastic, they're going to go inside and outside the tube, going in and outside the bottle. In the other, where you have the cardboard, the degrading of the cardboard of the paper is going to consume the oxygen of the water, and the fish are going to die. So I think this can be a very good history to be told in the next presentations. I learned with Professor Julio as well that we should not be talking about biodegradation. It's composting or non-composting material. Composting material have a destination. You don't talk about biodegradation if you don't have composting. So if you degrade a material, you're going to kill a lot of fish. You're going to pollute a lot of water. So if you're a scientist, raise your hand and tell me that you can affirm that biodegradation is the best thing to do in any aspect without control of composting. So the PL Bill 2524 says that we're going to replace all the plastic by biodegradable material. So this is a complete ignorance from the environmental point of view. So let's take some small examples. Are you going to kill the fish throwing paper in the water, or you're going to ensure that the bottled water is going to arrive to Rio Grande do Sul after the flood and all that? So there's a long path to be taken and to walk ahead of us. What am I going to say after so much good explanation? Yeah, our conduct at System Plus is targeted at education and teaching and learning. So the Congress started in 2014 online. After 10 years, we are here in the 5th edition, and that is our duty to bring the society closer to the industry of plastic transformation. We have now people from the sector, the industry, but we also have people from civil society, professors, teachers. There are people that have traveled more than 600 kilometers by bus during the night and arrived this morning. And then when we finish, is going to go back to the bus terminal to go back to their city. So this is not an event for converted. The Brazilian Congress of Plastic is for people to come here and absorb knowledge. So We need to do a lot of things. There are a lot of things to be done. There is a lot of life cycle assessment to be made. And of course, that the mystery of other.
It's very easy to say that a material is not sustainable because of its origin, raw material, but that doesn't define if the material is sustainable or not. Sustainability isn't about the material, it's about the human actions. The only human life being that's capable of this. We are responsible for this. And we are responsible for the education we give our children. We were talking about that yesterday. Which one of us has delivered something for taught knitting to your children? When I grew up, my fun was to do crochet. Now can I do it? No. But my grandma used to do it with the cord that she would use for a plastic bag that came from the milk bag. The circular economy has joined my family and my life long before I was born. Because when I was born, I used everything that was my sister's, her clothes, all her bicycles, all her toys. I think it was the same with you guys, but within our homes now, we educate differently. So we need to get aligned. What's the difference that we have nowadays from Japan? Why in Japan don't they have a cap glued to the pet bottle? As Ronald said before, Ronald said this morning, if you weren't here, and he presented that the PET bottles go naked to be recycled. The lid has to go with the PET bottle in Europe because people don't put the caps in the right place. If we put it in Brazil and we get almost to 4 million, just this year we're going to reach these values. And with the changes in plastic transformation, it needs to be recycled as well to improve its communication. Stop just, thinking they're more important the pains of the society, as Albano said before. People who are disabled are needing to access our coast, and the transformation of plastic makes a big difference to society. If it just served us a bit more, it would be so much better. Thank you. Albano, do you want to compliment? Just be brief, because we have other questions. I would like to compliment a little this point of view from Simara. I believe that before we have a contact for this, as a country, we need to move on towards that direction of educating. I think you all must remember from an ad from the federal government, they were very worried about the population in general. They were throwing cigarette butts through the windows. And the government, there was a government action, did that an advert about being like a pig. What was that? We are dirtying the world? And the government gave that message. And it was for children. I remember as I was a child, my dad used to smoke in the car. He threw the cigarette butt outside, and I would call him a pig. As a society, we need to demand a government action in the sense of educating the population to discard correctly all materials. Remove the stigma from this is recyclable, that isn't, and they all need to be done that way. And we have the plastic segment They are having their initiatives, trying as best as possible through Biquim, Abiplast, to take in this message. But we need to demand from our governors that they took this message to children in a massive way so that we could create this conscience. I think that's essential, Albano. This part of government would help a lot to educate people. Fabiana, now let's start with you. The chemical recycling side of things, I've seen some presentations, not from Braskem, but you say that chemical recycling would be the future for all this issue of plastic that's being thrown away. And I always questioned that there is chemical recycling, but the amount that we can recycle chemically compared to the total amount of production of polyethylene is very small, and it wouldn't be a solution, it would be one of the solutions. So, getting that together, thinking about a life cycle from chemical recycling, I think you have these numbers. If you could talk about the advantage of using this recycling and talking about naphtha, other cases, other plastics, and transforming it within the industry, but looking globally, we are talking about 1.2 tons of recycling we're seeing probably next year. It's not a message we can say would be a definite solution. The growth of chemical recycling, what would be the part of the reduction of cost for this resin produced? Because many things that are being produced and it's not viable to the market. Sorry to ask you so much, but you're truly involved in this market of chemical recycling. Thanks for the question. Very simple question. So, first of all, bring in more clarity. I never said it's the solution. I said it's a solution also. So, to say for a complex challenge, you won't have just one solution. You're going to have many solutions. And within our point of view, it complements the mechanics. It's complementary that we advance, that we grow in mechanic recycling because there's room for that to bring more quality, to increase applications. But what we see is a difficult of recovering more plastics. So chemistry comes in this context. In those plastics that we have more difficult to recycle, when we are collecting from different landfills, and the cooperatives to evaluate the qualities, to develop recycling, looking at local garbage, when we think about chemical recycling in other places, so that we can get these materials that are not being recycled, then make them recyclable. So the objective of chemistry is complementary. Also, for emissions, mechanic is worse. That's why we say it's complementary, because mechanically you don't go back all the way to the productive process. Why don't we have clarity on this life cycle? We have a study that was published in Europe by BASF because they analyze life cycle with data from operation, energy sources. You may have renewable sources and a better result for ACV. And now we have the study at BASF in Europe and an operation with local data. This is a challenge of having more operations, and then we can have better results for emissions. And relating to economical, we need to broaden our capacity. The volume of material that goes into the end destination, we said what data we have annually. We are talking about 3 million tons. So how can we increase? First of all, we need pilot plants. The cost of raw material is much higher, so we've been talking about our clients. And if we don't change this, we're not going to have investment and the increase in capacity. So it's always a journey. It's a big challenge. We invest a lot for economic results. We challenged ourselves, especially when you have a very cheap commodity with this challenge, and to increase recovery as an industry, as a sector, to develop this in different countries. There was a delay for startup in some regions, but the expectation is that we will eventually complement what we have nowadays. Can I give an example of polystyrene? We have a petrochemical plant, and in the past, we brought this back, let's say, not with pyrolysis, but we introduced that within the reactor up to a certain volume. And we were able to have EPS once again, post consumption, content post consumption, in the same characteristics as a brand new material. It was more expensive. Why was it more expensive? The logistics of bringing that back is much more complex. The separation system triage of the material is much more complex because there can be any type of contamination, but it's viable. But it's a bit more expensive. So, of course, we went to our main clients and they said, "Oh, you have post consumption material, but it's going to cost 20% more." So, I don't care. Then we went another route that we are developing. There are suppliers that we have here to bring back this material to be a post consumption EPS usable in the technical characteristics we need, but it's a more expensive material. It won't be cheaper. I can't understand how the market can think that the recycled material post consumption is going to be cheaper. There's no way. You must remember years ago that they sent recyclable paper. Then they were all using it, recycled material, because we are environmentalists, but then they said, we're paying more for this. And going back to this, it's much simpler to do this, and it's very expensive to recycle. And, and this, if we are going to take this to a newer world, we're going to have to pay more for this. I suffered a lot more than both of them in this story than the story with PET recycling. It's more than 10 years in the sector, and I tried to sell recycled PET, and they knocked at my door and said, "You want me to take it to the garbage, to throw it in the garbage?" And now they say, "What am I going to do with recycled PET?" And it goes, climbs mountains. I don't have anything else to answer. And unfortunately, in Brazil, there are many distributors or traders, and they don't like what I'm going to say, but there's a truth. And it's not very well taken care. When we think about plastic sector, it's always the other one who's doing something can make more money buying and selling and imported product. And you have to take care of yourself. If you're 65, you don't need to worry about what I'm gonna say now. Strategy. So pricing completely different. Petrol breaking down, resin, transformation, distribution. What does recycling do? It's another cost structure. We are talking about collectors, cooperatives, selective collection. Do you know how much of recycled PET is discarded by the recycler, and the collected system that mixes organics? And who does it very well misses out 20%. Who doesn't do it so great loses more. So there's a huge loss of the logistic process. So this whole cost structure, of course, recycling will be more expensive. So people who think I'm gonna put recycled products here, there are no chances of doing that. Of course, if petrol is $180 a barrel, there's gonna be room for recycling. I spent my life trying to sell recycled PET when it got to 70%, and I paid for everything. And now PET is being sold 20 to 30% more expensive than brand new. There is no PET for recycling. Everything is selling out. Do you know how this happens? Pressure from the society, the demands, the regulatory issues. People have to be united in that. There needs to be a commitment for the sales contracts to follow, and then they need to be healthier even when there is a price difference. So the formula pricing has different cost structures between the two of them. It's a positive point of not having so much volatility from the global market. Consider be cost for material cost, that's a logistics service. I think the price issue is relevant here. We have to provide this message. Whenever you try to show a way, you people say no, I shouldn't do that. I will increase my cost and it's not worth it. Another point is that chemical recycling is used for food where recycled we can get for packaging, so the chemical recycling would cover that. Silmara, first of all, congratulations to you, to Alfredo. You've done a great job. I've known you for a long time. You were like ants, and we got you where you got you, and you deserve a round of applause because it's not easy to do what you did and get you where you got you. But throughout these years that you worked, how was the awareness of people that you've been working with? Have you been able to make this change? And everything is engaged in a group with a group of people that think just like you, that want to make a difference. I don't think there's anyone here that is watching and that doesn't think about recycling. And sincerely, everybody understands. And it united a lot of pain and a lot of failures that existed and that were identified in the Brazilian Congress of Plastic a long time ago. I would respond, Domenico, with the numbers of Tampinha Legal. Now, as I presented before, more than 800 million plastic lids, they are collected by volunteers. Nobody is paid to get this plastic. Everybody who collects that does it voluntarily. It's me, it's our families, the person who cleans, and the owner of the home, and the company owner, and everybody gathers plastic caps, bottle caps. So when we looked at a piece of plastic, doesn't matter if it's a lid or if it's the package of a cracker, that is raw material and it has a value. If it doesn't have value to me, it has value to someone, whether it's a family at the cooperative that lives from these resources, then we've reached our objective. I can't believe that we, as a nation, can't be a nation such as Japan. Everybody understands that they need what needs to be done. Everyone at once, at the same time, and now individually and collectively. The numbers of Tampinha Legal answer more than 1,500 tons of bottle caps collected. One lid is handed in to the collector. Somebody separates, somebody bags it, others deliver it. How many hands are involved in that? A lot. We are not gonna stop. We are the majority. We truly are. Thank you, Simara. Well done. Auri, I saw your presentation. It was great. I had never seen such a good presentation from Pat. That was so great. Yeah, I'm sure you had more things to show, but what I see in the market, a lot of people have been investing in using recycled flakes from PET. And from what you said now, there are no flakes for recycling. So you make a huge investment with exhaustion systems, vacuum, cleaning, and so on. And then you see the problem of not having raw materials. And then we need to do it with virgin products and the higher, more expensive technology. The collectors, there's a limit. How can we increase their productive capacity? Not just being the collectors, because they are going to have a volume limitation. It's cool. It's cool. Thanks for the question. I can't show everything here, but we have a slide ready to answer that. And we understand that reverse logistics is split in four ways to do that. And with the national policies, since I was studying, we studied that model. And we split it into four models with the separation and recycling. Is when you are having your meal, you mix organic with recycled, then you're gonna have problems. The reverse logistics, how do I take that into a recycling industry? And in the second, these are the four basic links. And then it changes. And then we need to convince people to use recycling.
Even Gisele Bündchen uh, went to a parade with a recycled T-shirt. So this was all possible, but there was no demand. Then you create demand, you don't have an industrial park. So currently in Brazil, we have hundreds and millions of dollars invested in idle capacity. A lot of money, and there is 30% more of capacity in projects that are stopped as well. So the bottleneck of all this process, so now the bottleneck of the bottle is in the collection and separation, because we cannot depend on out, alternative models of collection. So picker cooperative and all that, they send the material, we're going to decide what to do. So the industry has prepared for that, and there's no collection. Now we need robust collections. That's why I have criticized the city halls, because the reasons that are being given to the city halls not to implement the regulation is absurd. So they're postponing the deployment of selective collection. If nothing is done, they won't have enough material, because for us to increase 1%, I need to increase 10, 20, 40,000 tons. So it's such a huge amount. In developed countries, they have that. So if you compare, for example, Japan or Germany, people have already mentioned that in Germany and Switzerland, the bins are made up appropriately to discharge correctly. So you have the machines in Germany, when the pad you throw that is there inside is more expensive, but these are rich countries that have subsidizing for that. So here Here in Brazil, if they put that stainless steel bin, they will steal even the pole together with the bin. So we have approaches of collection that are much inferior, and Brazil is the leader in different applications for recycled PET. So this is what we need to do. So that's what I've done throughout my life. So you create a solution, you find a solution, create a demand, but you cannot fix collection things. There was a law that demanded every material to collect their own package. So this is ridiculous because that is why what a public collection is for, you know. So in selection collective, you go to the landfill, and then at the landfill, the law does not allow to have the separator any longer, so it's not being separated. So we have at least 3 or 4 billion reais being thrown away only at PET. Well, yeah, with the numbers of 50% of recycled, with what we have in Brazil is like a miracle, as really, you know. It's a very good presentation as well. The Valfium group I've known for a long time. I know the plant of bottle to bottle that was the first in Latin America, I believe, with a high investment, and the group believed in this process. So how are you going to equate this group? Because you are investing a lot in recycling, and you have an installed capacity that's very big for virgin products. So what is the internal management? I found that it was very nice that you want to do a copy paste of the companies in this process, since you had all this learning, but it's hard to manage that. So I would like to have an idea how you're going to manage that as of now. Well, our process currently, they absorb everything that we produce virtually in the recycle. So what is not sell as resin, we absorb everything that we produce. There is a lack of input, so now we have an installed capacity for recycling that is bigger than we are recycling. So there is more room for us to have more recycled products in our packages, and this division is very dependent on cages. So currently we absorb 100%, and we have this sold to all the clients, and we have this program sales of this recycled content, and we have the capacity to increase, and the idea is to do that. That is why we invested in advanced recycling. We have been investing in that for some years already to increase the recycled content that we can embed into the product. So the idea is to improve circularity and increase circularity. So the idea is to increase more and more the content of recyclable in our products and recycle 50% of what we have. That is a target for 2040. We are at 3040, so it's a high number. Well, congratulations on the group and on your work. Albano, congratulations. I had never seen the DBS recycling part. I think that you probably invested on that, and very few people did that for an extremely light product, hard to transport, with a different logistic, and you did that. So what was your dream? Because if you look back in the past, I don't know how long ago you did that, looking at this product of polyethylene, and we thought that it was not worth even thinking about this recycling process. Now you already have a project, you are associated to a petrochemical group that will help you do all that. So if you thought about that when you started dreaming about this project, so I want to know how you were able to make this dream come true, because I think that at that time it was virtually impossible to do that. Well, first of all, I've been leading the company for 25 years, and as soon as I arrived, I looked at this material and I said, oh my God, what a fantastic material, because I used to say that polyethylene is the bombril of the packaging, but 100% recyclable and all that. But nobody knew that. So what is our responsibility with that? So 25 years ago, we thought, what do we do after our client used the product? We had already thinking about that. And then I started a process and I said, what can we do with that? And then we started a trajectory that was very interesting. The first thing that I said is I need to communicate that this material is recyclable and what can we do? So we created a mascot. We very cute EPS. I wanted that to look like Disney. So I wanted it to be something that you felt like hugging, and we developed a guideline, a DVD of that. So we had that already. And then I said, I need to start developing this material. Who can help me? Because we needed some resources to do that. And then I went after with my main clients to see if they could help me. The first meeting, oh, that is wonderful. This is exactly what we need. This is the provider that we want, that is concerned about the packaging of our products and all that. And then I said, when I said that I needed help, people that were at the table, at the meeting table, they went away. So I wanted to put a flyer inside the packagings, and thank God that didn't work because I had not set up in the country all the collections, the system, and I only saw the difficulty that could generate when we decided to do something that nobody did, no cooperative, no recycler and all that. Nobody wanted to recycle polyester, and because people that said that it was not recyclable, nobody does that and all that. Then we started to structure there in our units how we made the collection to first of all show that this was possible, but that needed to be self-sustainable. So we invested a lot of money in the beginning, but it had to pay off. So to transform this into a resin and sell, I did not need to make money, but that needed to be a closed circuit, a closed loop, in which I did not have to invest money. That was in 2010 when we started, much before the national policy of solid residues. So people were thinking about that, and we started already doing it. But a lot with this concern that we thought that it was possible, but nobody did. So I had no way to do it as well. So yeah, congratulations. You are an entrepreneur that has a differentiated vision. So now we're going to open for questions from the public, from the audience. You can ask your questions, and then we will answer. Good evening, Alexandrino. I'm retired. I wanted to say that I am you tomorrow. So just quickly, does anybody know how much, in terms of total or resin, is recycled, that is present in the economy currently is recycled? Because what you have been saying the whole day, according to what you have been saying the whole day, the number should be big. Is it expressive, or we're thinking about something small? The second question, I don't know to whom, maybe Domenico, but on top of what Albano said and Larissa said about children, we are going through a changing generation in the plastic industry. I think that the young people that are coming, people from 30 to 40, already have a concept environmental that is different. they're not going to have this difficulty that you said, Albano, because they will already come in with that kind of spirit. Do you agree with that or not? With regard to volume, we are talking about 1,000,000 tons, 1,100,000 tons of products with recycled PCR content. For a total volume that is around, in our vision, including all the resins, 6, 7 million tons. So, and then we say that the rate of recycling of what is produced, not of what's generated. So when we talk about the recycling rate, we say 24%, 25%, because half of this volume is of a short duration and the other is medium and long, so you do not generate the residue annually. So in terms of recycling, this 1,100,000 correspond to 5%, because we're talking about 4 million tons of residues generated annually. I don't know if anybody has a different number, but I think it's around 7 million tons per year. I don't think it's inexpressive. I don't know that's big, but I think that it's a lot. It's proportional to the size of the country, but there is room for increase with the recycled content and reuse it, not throw away resources. Yeah. Let me try to answer this regarding the generation as I see. I think these people at around 30, I think that they were brainwashed in this process during this 30 years. And they are coming to the market with a very bad mindset, I think. That I think that is going to need to be changed because they were conditioned to materials that, oh, this biodegradable thing. If you talk to them, they will think that what's nice is biodegradable, is the other materials, and plastic is the big enemy, is the bad boy, because this is what they have been hearing for years and years.
And this generation, people who are 30, they are going to need a lot of media with a lot of money behind to try to change this mentality. Just a counterpoint. I am very proud nowadays of when I started 7 years ago in my area of circular economy. Nobody wanted to join that area. Nobody. Because nobody even believed that it was true. After some years, some colleagues said when Braskem had recycling projects, they doubted it. Inside and outside, nobody wanted to come. 7 years later, it is very interesting when there is any position, internal position, there are no other areas that have more interested people in joining. The majority includes young people, but goes up to about 40. There are some people with more experience, of course, but it's usually this age group. So there's been a lot of changes, and I see that inclusively talking about young people, interns, I think it's great when they joined Braskem and said, I came because I saw that you were working with circular economy and that you care about recycling because plastic residue is a pain, it's a concern, and am so happy to join a plastic industry knowing there is an environmental and social responsibility. That's at least been my perception in the last few years. It's not an easy journey. You've been going through that for 30 years, but for me, I think there's a new mindset, and it's an expectation that the industry has a solution. Just to complement, because I'm this pre 30 generation, I only look old, but I'm not. I'm less than 30, and my generation as a whole, what I hear is, why do you work with plastic? And for me, it was a big mentality change. I started with polymers since I left university, and for me, it's great. But it's a conversion of people because we learned that recycled paper was good. We did that in school. We recycled paper and we used it to make toys and so on. So nowadays in my team, I have two very young girls who are here, and we always talk about that. How difficult it is to talk to people our age and talk about plastic. It's not very nicely seen. So we take this idea of circularity, how important it is, and it's an activity that we take to our daily lives and to our social networks, and they criticize us. We work a lot with that. We take it to LinkedIn, to Instagram to try and make people aware. When we talk to younger people, they don't understand why plastic. Why are you saying that if everybody says it's bad? So, showing our point of view in this reality, it's been tough. People like sustainability, circularity, but when we start talking about this, people don't go very deep. Even to hire people, I don't know if it's hard for you. And we think it's an ideal world, and it's very different from what it was. And it's very important. Any more questions? So let's start by praising you for your posture and the answers that were given. But I would like to focus on your first question. Your first question was how to revert the media trend that it's against plastic. It seems to me that the focus it's been done in the solution. We've seen it today, a series of actions trying to solve part of the problem. And part of you, each one of you has suggested a solution. Other panels talked about different solutions, and for me, I think the focus wasn't thinking about solution, but thinking about problems. And the solutions can come from many places, but there is an essential problem that needs to be solved. If we talk about the first talk of today, it's clear that there is a communication problem. The main communication problem that plastic has is the lack of information. This was proven in the first panel, and we have to change focus. The focus is not to expose what's being done, and the focus has to be the problem, finding a way to finish this disinformation. It can be done. There needs to be a concentration of efforts in this focus to inform what was presented in the morning in a less technical way to the whole world, especially to Brazil. Do you want me to answer or do you just want to say that? I agree. I worked for 20 years in petrochemical, and the petrochemical was to blame, and we thought nothing was going to happen to us. You know that. I worked there for 20 years, and we were quiet for a long time. This perpetuated all this maleficence that they are talking about plastic. Stuff's changing this awareness. You go to school now, they say plastic is going to kill everyone. You have to fight for this. Plastic can have polystyrene cups because they pollute. You go, you explain and stuff because this message was a mistake in the past. and believing in all of that. I worked with petrochemical industry and I'm part, and I am to blame because we never fought for this. And any newspaper says plastic lasts 50, 500 years. Come on. Who has a plastic bag that has lasted 10 years? Or any plastic that was produced when Carbachi started 4 years ago? Does that exist? No. We can't pass on that message. I think that lie, what Chris said, he put it so well. There's a lot of lies that sell much better than reality. This is what I have to say. Don't know if you want to comment on that. I agree partially. I think the industry and the sector, in terms of communication, less aggressive communication. We've never actually been to hit other materials. I said when we were going to communicate our materials, but we shouldn't minimize the problem. We have plastic waste going to the oceans. I know it's not just this waste. We've seen the presentation with scientific data, but we have an existing problem that is plastic waste. And this we denied for a long time as a sector. And I'm afraid of us simply saying the problem is communication and stop acting on what is important, which is to have a circular economy, recycling, to dedicate, trying to use, it's not that easy to use recycled products, not just bottom to bottom, but everything we've learned. And running all of this, there has to be a will from the industry with communication. We can always improve. We've been seeking that to take this information. And this was the mistakes of the industry just saying that the problem of plastic result it's from the consumer. And we need to stop taking, we need to do that. And we're gonna have a problem again soon. It's a cycle. Paper was problematic for a long time. Then they planted trees and they have to act. The problem is the societies. I replant, I use trees much less on the A and B sector, and we can improve communication. But I am afraid that we are absorbing that and saying it's not our problem and not being able to change into the circular economy for us to solve the plastic problem. Not to interrupt you, but we're going to now have the last question. Good afternoon, I'm Adilson from Travel Recycling. I'll be brief because they allowed me to ask one more question. Tell a very quick story. A friend told me at lunchtime. I'll be very brief. What would you do if you were going up an escalator in the middle? You ask a technician, I suppose, but it doesn't work. And you say, I need help. I need the escalator doesn't work. You're gonna need to get moving. I need to keep climbing up or down the escalator. I use this example because we have two events here in São Paulo talking about circularity. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and each one here in each one of these events, if each one impacts just one person or two people, it will be 1,000, and they will impact 2,000 more. And we can do something very simple, just impacting these people. And I tell my daughter that takes the message to school, and she's very proud that her father works with recycling. She's 12. She takes this to her school. They promote debates. They called me to talk in her school. So if we do it simply, at home, starting one tells two and two tell four, and then we have a couple million people. And we don't need to take on a responsibility, just explain, no, it's not this, this is not true, and that. And it's much better. I just wanted to say that. I don't know if you want to comment on that. Thank you for your help, for the comments. It's very clarified. I think we can do that, move all that with more and more technology. And if we put that number, if we have the growth with this, with PET and everything else, all the plastic, and then it won't generate as much noise if we get something. And technology is there, and it will help us with recycling. And in education, we all have a duty and educate. And I've been to my children's school. They yelled at me, but just like you, and you sold recycled PET. So thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, Larissa, Albano, Fabiana, Auri, Simara, Domenico. Thank you all.
De repente, fazer um registro.